Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon, formerly FinDAP, FinGap, Flat Earth Nation, Golden Age Past. And that's what I believe, that it's a Flat Earth Nation, the Golden Age is past. That means the Armageddon is over. Mud Flood Was Armageddon, my new channel. Mud Flood Was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Hola, Marcella. I'm looking at, when am I going to, now that I have this different, I got to remember to turn that volume down. We're taking another risk with some sketchy Wi Fi to go live. Learned my lesson on Monday. Remember at the end of the show, I was not having a lot of confidence in what was going to be accomplished on Monday through the VA. Nice lady, Lori. If you're watching, Lori, I didn't get back to you, but it was worse than I thought, but it was very, uh, the Lord has turned it into a blessing, and that why should I have expected it? This is all about wait upon the Lord time, wait upon the Lord time. We're not those waiting on the rapture and that it has to be imminent. I really do feel that I'm renewing my strength. So after a very disappointing Monday at the VA, and I'll keep this short because I want to get to these scriptures and these other tabs I have pulled up. I went to the university, Adams State University, where I'm trying to enroll. I said, "Did you get my transcripts from Harper University?" Yeah, but it's not enough. It's not 32 or 16. So we need your high school transcripts. And I said, "You need my high school transcripts? You told me all you needed was these other things." But anyway, so I'm getting my high school's transcripts, which is hard because it's, the high school I went to is closed down, and it's easier because I can drop my name and where I need to get my, the high school that was closed. My sister is the superintendent of that school district. So I talked to somebody I know today, actually maybe two people when I called up, because after I called up, they go like, you got to call the high school that took over, because so now I did. And, so we've got that coming. So we still have plenty of time before winter to find out, where I'm going to live. I want it to be on campus somewhere around Alamosa. That being said, hola, Captain Caveman. Want to just start out with some really crazy verses before we, I've got a lot of verses pulled up. If you have questions, feel free. Checking out everything. This ought to be crazy. Wait until you hear this. What's the word shade? Maybe in the King James they call it a shade. This Bible verse. Check this out. So here's one. It rouses the shades to greet you. Right. So I want to get to this one. That's the one from Isaiah. It stirs the shades, the departed spirits. The departed spirits are sometimes called shades. That jumped out at me as something that I felt like I should share. That is used in Isaiah 14. We'll look at it. Isaiah 26, 14 and 19. Verses 14 and 19. There's 14. They are deceased. They will not. They are dead. Destroyed them. They are deceased. Repay him. Repay him. Yeah, that'd be a long A. Pium. They are dead. They will not live. They are shades. They will not arise. They, no, to that end, you have visited them with destruction and wiped out all remembrance of them. What was the other one? 16? Another one. 14. Have increased the nations you are glorified. Wiped out all remembrance of them. But that's probably not the biggie. Not the biggie. Welcome, Skadoosh. Hola, mi amigo. Dropping a little Spanish lingo on you right there. Breaking forth. It rouses the shades to greet you. So here is that one, you know, you'll know where it leads to, but we'll start in verse 3. When the Lord has given you rest from your pain and turmoil and the hard services with which you were made to serve, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon, how the oppressor has ceased, the insolent fury ceased. The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked, the scepter of the rulers. Definitely not talking about 2023. That struck the people in wrath with unceasing blows, that ruled the nations in anger with unrelenting persecution. The whole earth is at rest and quiet. They break forth into singing. The cypresses rejoice at you, the cedars of Lebanon saying, since you were laid low, no woodcutter comes up against us. Even the cedars of Lebanon are making fun of the king of Babylon. Sheol beneath us is stirred up to meet you, still talking to the king of Babylon. When you come, it rouses. Sheol, stirred up to meet the king of Babylon, rouses the shades, departed spirits, to greet you who were leaders of the earth. It rises from their thrones, all who were kings of the nations. All of them will answer and say to you, you also, you too have become as weak as we. You have become like us, king of Babylon, not king of Tyre. Sounds like it'd be king of Tyre. Your pomp has brought you down to Sheol, the sound of your harps. Maggots are laid as a bed beneath you, and worms are your covers. I mean, could it be any more gross? Except for the fire, how you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn, how you are cut down. And they had these shades, these departed spirits rising up to greet them. How you're cut down to the ground, you who made the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the Mount of Assembly in the far reaches of the north, the remote parts of Zephan. I will ascend above the heights of the cloud. I will make myself like El Elyon. But you are brought down to Sheol, to the far reaches of the pit. Those who see you will stare at you and ponder over you. Is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook kingdoms, who made the world like a desert and overthrew its cities, who did not let his prisoners go home? All the kings of the nations lie in glory, each in his own tomb. Wow. That could be, there could be still just nations out there that nobody knows about, but you were cast out away from your grave like a loathed branch, clothed with the slain, those pierced by the sword, who go down to the stones of the pit like a dead body trampled under foot. You will not be joined by them in burial because you have destroyed your land, you have slain your people. What kind of man is this? Is this Weadam, Ha'adam? I'm curious. I haven't looked it up. What kind of an Adam are they talking about here? This just means male. Not even, it's one of those ish, ha is, which is one of those ish. Very mysterious wording in this one. The ish. Now, therefore, restore the man his wife. It's a man. It's a man. It's identified. It's a man. It's identifying as a man. Where's that ish? Taken out of man. There it is. She was taken out of man. Eesh. Therefore, a man, singular, shall leave his father and his mother. The ideal has always been one man, one wife for life. God had to wink at some sins along the way. He is a God of love. He is love. This is male men. Something about that, though. We'll get to some of these answers, but I just thought that it's too much this to pass up the shade, the shades, and then it ties into Satan and everything else. Let's just close out more, see what's going on here. Go back to the very beginning. It had the Bible going up. Kings 17. Let's see. These are ones I think I was talking. We were with Randy and circled the camp of the saints, the city, just going over again that the camp, is basically in the King James Version, it's a castle, and that's what I just means is I think it's representing any castle, any catacomb, any Mesa Verde cliff dwelling, any one of those great places where supplies were stored for people who were obeying God when He said, go to the mountains, flee to the mountains, dig holes in them, and say, fall on us, save us from the wrath to come. That even the New Testament mentions this. That we're under this wrath. It mentions in, isn't it the first chapter of Revelation? So we've got the camp of the saints, castles, military barracks. It's only called a camp with the same word in that Revelation, So, much speculation, what is a camp? What is that city of the beloved? Is it only one city that's going to, you have to go to Mount Marahu or something, but it is, it's a city. And I think it's going to be a camp of the saints, of people on a narrow road from what we call continents of all areas, and people will be saved everywhere under this flat domed earth. That's my hope. I don't see it as a place we have to journey to. And the only city I see that's journeying and coming to us is the holy city, the temple that's after the great white throne of judgment. Not trying to pick a fight on this one. But I've seen too many people go too deep into the speculating here. So again, with the barracks, I wanted to make sure we got to that one, I guess. Each to his own city. Wanted to make sure we got to that one too. So these are just some different things I was studying. Heba, son of Bikrai, the unnamed wise woman in Second Samuel who threw the head of Shibna off the wall, saved the town. Who knows what town this is? It's Jerusalem. David had to fortify it a little bit, but a lot went on because of that situation. When David returned to Jerusalem after the defeat of Absalom, who must have been cursed because he was hung on a tree, strife, this is right when the strife arose between the 10 tribes and the tribe of Judah. When they divided, Sheba took advantage of this in proclaiming, "We have no part in David." David said, Abishai and Joab, take the mighty men and, go pursue Sheba before he got to a fortified city. But they were too late. He got to, a city that would be called Jerusalem. That's the wise old woman from the city convinced Joab not to destroy Abel Beth Maacah because the people did not want Sheba hiding there. She told the people of the city to kill Sheba, and it was thrown over the wall. Well, we should go check that out. Doesn't it sound exciting? I know I was listening to it today, and it never hurts to go back over those things and study your scriptures front and back. Let's just get it over here. To every man to his tent. Sheba. Okay, so maybe it wasn't that it was David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 concubines that Absalom the wicked had defiled and had to treat them as if they were living in widowhood. So he said the wiser woman lived in some other town. But to get to the deal on it, they said go and pursue this guy. And then Joab struck somebody down. Then Joab and Abishai, his brother, pursued Sheba, the son of Bichri, and one of Joab's young men took his stand by Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for Joab, let him follow Joab." Then and Amasa lay wallowing in his blood in the highway, and anyone who came by seeing him stopped. That's the picture. It was all about this man lying in the highway, Amasa, killed and then fled into this city. And because you killed him, you got to bad, stop killing him. So they were going to tear down. All the Bichrites assembled and followed him in, and all the men who were with Joab came and besieged him in Abel of Beth Maacah. They cast up a mound against the city, and it stood against the rampart, and they were battering the wall to throw it down when a wise woman from the city said, "Listen, listen, tell Joab, come here that I may speak to you." And he came near to her, and the woman said, "Are you Joab?" He answered, "I am." Then she said to him, Listen to the words of your servant. And he answered, I am listening. Then she said, they used to say in former times, let them but ask counsel of Abel. And so they settled the matter. I am one of those who are peaceful and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why will you swallow up the heritage of the Lord? Joab answered, far be it from me, far be it that I should swallow up or destroy. That's not true. But a man of the hill country of Ephraim called Sheba, the son of Bichri, has lifted up his hand against King David. Give him alone, and I will withdraw from the city. And the woman said to Joab, behold, his head shall be thrown to you over the wall. Then the woman went to all the people in her wisdom, and so it was done. That it was a big deal to me today. So I thought I'd share it. You know what this is? That state of Deseret. That's that whole this would have been the boundaries for the provisional state of Deseret, the state of what now is Utah. It's Mormonism. It's the modern state of, Mormonism. They even have it still on the Washington Monument as what they said it was a stone that represented a provisional state. But, as weird and as easy of a target as the Mormons are, I thought that I would use this time, let's see, to, just remind you how easy it would be to start a religion if after 1711, going into the reset, you had a group of Masons, and then all of a sudden they told another group of Masons, pretend you're looking through a seer stone and you found plates of gold, and we'll fill in the rest, and we'll have people follow you. And it will be a good way to spread people out west, settlers, a military term, and we'll go and we've got 506 treaties to break with the natives of this land so we can manifest destiny the situation. So they have practice making whole religions acceptable. I believe that's good proof that they did the same thing for the Muslim religion, and that this whole Muslim religion is why people like Fander Films and Dr. J. Smith are finding it so easy now that they're giving the zeitgeist treatment to the Mormon and to the, I meant to say Muslims, to the Muslims to say, like, wow, that whole Mecca, that didn't even exist, till a couple hundred years ago. Years ago, he said. A lot of walking around here. Was at the doctor, I believe on Tuesday, 162 pounds. So I lost 3 pounds since I've moved to Colorado. I think it's all the walking. And boy, was I sore that first month, maybe the first 2 months. But so we got that settled anyway, right? Now we got that. We're kicking through some scriptures of things the Lord showed me today. We're moving towards, I'm not going to put anybody on the clock, but I'm not saying I might not. But this whole thing is just becoming crazy with this redefining the right ministry or something, and everybody else all talking about Atlantis and Nephilim. I'll put in my 2 cents on this whole situation. Un momento, I don't want to have a blackout stage like President Obama. So the state of Deseret, good proof that you can make up, with secret societies, a religion, and send them out into the world. Now, the electorate of Trier You ever heard of this? Look, they got a flag, a couple of flags, coat of arms, maps, the electorate of cheer. Busy times, very Greek god centric. American Cancer Society cross. So let me know when you see it. Is that it? Kingdom of Trier. Busy place. I see Starford here, here. They're everywhere. Hertigosum. All right. Well, let's just get to what this is about here. There's a Roman bridge there. Of course, it's all mud floody. Trier. A Roman uh, this place was a capital of the electorate. It says from the 1500s onward was, a basically its own country that was a Christian country. I think I got here from countries that were former theocracies. And the Lord said, well, look up this one. And sure enough, weird. This thing was big and it lasted a long time. You know, they say from 1772 to 1801. Really? So I'm just learning about these kind of things today. That'd be 1,000 years of maybe being ruled by the rod of iron. I don't know. Only found out about it today. Yeah. Everything is new. Chocolate for hogs, it says. Well, we it's enough to say a lot of things seem very recent. So I think, unlike what Static in the Attic said today, is show me one lie where they really lied to us. It's like 9/11. That was a pretty big one. Alan Turing. I was thinking about doing something about that Blanchie Hall and how the setup is that without this who now is out of the closet LBGTQ poster child, was castrated for doing what, they described as unseemly things with another man. Supposedly they wouldn't have been able to crack the Enigma code and start the computer stuff without him. I say, that sounds like baloney. It really does. So, but typical. So I don't know if I got into him or not. Looks like I didn't. Uh, I did find, one of the early big from over 3 years ago, May 4th, 2020. Uh, Conspiracy RS talking about how this was a pretty new thing, and he had heard about and seen, my channel grow and had commented on it and finally, wanted to bring it to his much larger audience about, hey, have you heard of Flat Earth Nation de Area Praterita? That's what, FinDap, that's what I used to call myself too, is FinDap or FinGap. So that is a good shout out. That's how long this has been going on. And now, after we look at a few of these videos, we'll get into, new ex-charismatics, present charismatics trying to fit in Lucifer's in the, had sex with Eve, and now they're into that whole demon seed type of a situation too, which is crazy.
At three instances where there's these references to the return of Jesus, the book of Revelation, as to what will happen. So when Jesus returns, you're supposed to, of course, Jesus returns, and there's supposed to be this battle of Armageddon, a lot of apocalyptic events, and then Satan is bound for 1,000 years, thrown in a pit. And then you have another interesting thing where they're talking about the first resurrection. And and there's this final battle of Gog and Magog, and after that, there's a final judgment, and then time no more. So I want to look into some of these things and just see some of the tie-ins to our present situation. It's kind of interesting. So I wanted to start by looking at the return of the king. Now, the first thing I wanted to do is I just want to take a look at three instances where there's these references to the return of Jesus, when they expected it. And I think you're going to find the people that were talking in the Bible with reference to the second coming, they were expecting it. It seems like they were expecting it imminently, as opposed to at some point in the distant future. Now, this is the first example, and this is just from First Thessalonians, and this is the King James Bible, and here's the chapter and verse. But this was written by Paul the Apostle, I believe, and it was written to this church in Thessalonica, which I think is present day Greece. But if you look at the wording, it appears that they were expecting the return of Jesus in their lifetimes. So it just goes on to say, we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven at the final trumpet, and the dead in Christ shall rise first.
I think that, so we, I'm showing that these are over 3 years ago. Over 3 years ago. And, what's our responsibility? We believe it's true. We want other people to have the comfort, to know that, look, don't dread if you're not raptured in the next year. So, what is our responsibility? What should we do? What's our, we still have unanswered questions. We know what we know. We know that other people are trying to add Atlantis and Anunnaki and, other things too. What else do we have to debate about? Well, are the rocks crying out, or are, petrified wood crying out? But we do know that the beam will cry out to the rocks. So, but that's carved beams. But so there's many things to study. And I want to welcome some people I might have missed. Beck from Oz is in the house. It's so good to see you. I've been trying to, keep up, and I appreciate, I think it's cool how we're, there's other people from down under that watch the show and things like that. And it's wonderful. It's a narrow road, for all we know, it's 1 out of 10,000. But, So I dumped on the Alan Turing, the millennial reign. We don't, and there, we have so many, good arguments. Like Skadoosh said, there's over 100, and the whole Bible, should be read that way. To the people it was written to in context, which is why, Paul said, it's like when he describes what he thought the Ark of the Covenant looked like, because he said, it's not here anymore. You know, back then it wasn't for him. So they couldn't speak clearly about it anymore. But so in reality, the ones where, you know, uh, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, these were the ones where I looked up Armageddon, where he mentions, me, and that, these were the millennial reign of Christ is not, a new thing. It is something that the Lord is lifting the veil on. And I do want to just say hats off to Conspiracy are us for being so consistent. Now, the liberal hive mind, the women's national soccer team, in trouble this weekend for, against Vietnam. They didn't stand up proudly and, wave the flag. Some of them didn't sing the national anthem. Let's hear what they want us to think. This is what America. Do I have it queued up right?
Place that should be shamed and condemned. They continue in 2023 to disrespect the national anthem. Meanwhile, foreign nations like Vietnam and pretty much every other nation are showing patriotism and love for their country's flag and history. Mind you, foreign nations who don't have the same incredible history as the United States. If any country should be celebrated on the world stage, it's the frickin'
Okay, now I'm just asking you, is this the propaganda? It kind of seems like it. Vietnam, how dare they be more patriotic than us? They can keep coming out, a million and 1.25 million subscribers. The liberal hive mind. They know how to play one end against the other. And so now, knowing what we know now, that all of our hearts are desperately wicked, are we really that light upon the hill? Or did we use that as an excuse for manifest destiny to genocide this country? Now, this ministry was started with myself, and Randy and Doug Bartles. And Doug's, you know, took a lot of grief from his family and hometown, where his kids were the basketball stars, because he wouldn't stand for the national anthem either. And that was 2015, 2016. And yet, this is how they want you to think of the country that's $33 trillion in debt and wants to impose a medical and martial law.
United States of America, the country that has led the world economically and all this incredible innovation that's made everyone's lives better, the country that led the world in civil rights progress and progress for the individual, one of the first countries to end slavery and enshrine individual rights regardless of family lineage, socioeconomic status, identity, skin color. That's a country that should be celebrated. Patriotism should be on the menu, should be popular, the most popular dish, but we continue to see this utter disrespect, nonsense, woke political grift. No wonder.
Wow. And how easy is it to hate them when you hear something like that? Hate them for, having some doubts about, like, hey, did we do it right? I mean, you know, did we honor our brothers? Now, to Right Response Ministries, of course, here we have a man who is living large. He's post millennial. He's middle aged. He's he's got this, he's left the charismatic movement. He's in the Calvinism, and now he's found the post mill, and now they're all about that. And he's leading the way now with his understanding of Michael Heiser and the Watcher and the Nephilim and the giants. But he's going down the road of I don't know, of Arianism, and he's going to say that the reason God was killing people in the Old Testament was because they had Nephilim blood. And that is the error of Rob Skiba and many others who don't want to admit to the 1,000 years, the rocks crying out, who, like this man, holds fast probably to 9/11. I'm sure he is a globe Earth believer. Not sure if I have this keyed up.
Let's just laugh at those people for a little bit. How foolish they were. If you want to be on the right side of history, believe this book. All of it. Have no problem verses, Doug Wilson has been fond of saying. No problem verses.
And he can refer to Doug Wilson, to his postmillennial crew, as just as Wilson has said. But you don't have to believe that the sun and the moon and the stars are, rotating around the earth in the firmament. That's something that, like only foolish people would believe. Now let's just, hopefully, Lord willing, we'll get into where he talks a little bit about a change of theology, possibly.
Says, are not angels ministering spirits who have been appointed by God to serve the children of Abraham, those who have been elected and called to salvation? So there are certain angels who have been prescribed by God, detailed by God with specific orders to be manward facing, not I, the spiritual children of Abraham, those who are to inherit salvation. Other angels like Gabriel. Michael, in the case of Daniel, he finally arrives on the scene to give revelation to Daniel, and he says, I'm sorry, I was held up in Persia because the prince of Persia, I had to do battle with him for a while.
30 days. I'll tell you what, that is a strange Bible verse. He had to fight, that's the principalities and powers. And, people say, you think it'll be heaven, it will be boring, and they want to go to hell and party. It's like, does it sound like Michael is bored in heaven?
While before I could get to you. One of the things that we need to understand, and this gets to the issue of patriarchy, we need to understand that God works through fathers. God is the ultimate father. The Bible says that every good and perfect gift.
I got no problem with any of that. I want to hear him talk about the Nephilim.
Probably a very short time, and a literal timeline, a short time after Satan's rebellion and him being cast down to earth, he then takes the form of a serpent or possesses a serpent, very likely a dragon, because one of the curses is that it would crawl on its belly, which seems to imply that previously it had some kinds of legs and feet. So a dragon, if you will, tempts the woman, deceives her. She then leads her husband. Instead of him choosing to lead her, he abdicates his rule and authority and hands over his dominion, right? That's the dominion mandate, the cultural mandate given to Adam to be fruitful and multiply and to fill the earth and subdue it. He gives his rule, his dominion over to Satan. Satan delegates this rule to other watchers in different principalities, regions, ruled by spiritual princes. There's always a human leader that rises up.
And doesn't he have you? The hands and the motion, he's bringing you right along, and I think, look at it. It's a Billy Graham, the school of the, he's not a charismatic anymore, but
head. Satan knew that eventually the woman would have a seed that would be his end, his demise. Satan, I believe, is filling the heart of Cain. Because in that sense, it's two birds killed with one stone. Abel might be the line. Cain might be the line. And what does God say to Cain as he's jealous because God receives Abel's sacrifice and not his? Sin is crouching at your door. Satan, the evil one, is crouching at your door. His desire is to have you, that is to master you. But you must not be mastered by him. You must rule over him. And Cain fails. And so Cain kills his brother. So if the line was in Abel, the messianic line, the seed promised to the woman who would crush the head of the serpent, if the line was in Abel, it's now been snuffed out. If the line was in Cain, because of his corruption, that's been snuffed out. But what the serpent did not foresee in the mercy and providence of God is that there would be a third son, Seth, that would carry the line.
How could Satan have even thought that he would know? Does Satan assume that he is omniscient? Does Satan assume that he would have known that, oh, there's only going to be these two sons? But what all of this time and Right Response Ministries doesn't know that where he's going with this is Satan had sex with Eve. Satan had sex with Eve, then Adam had sex with Eve, and there was a Nephilim seed line and a man seed line, and he's going right down, the Aryan road. And that is why God was wiping out the Canaanites. It's like one of Noah's daughters had Nephilim blood. That's Rob Skiba. That's Rob Skiba of like, well, they're wrong. It's obvious that the people that wrote the Bible thought that Jesus was returning in that generation. But they were wrong. And if they would have only listened to the book of Adam and Eve, and Zen Garcia and Rob Skiba then started introducing hardcore, any apocryphal book that they, said what itched their ears.
One possibility, though, is that although Noah and his wife and three sons are blameless, perfect in their genealogies, that the three wives of the three sons, because there are 8 persons in all taken on the ark being a type of Christ, the water being a type of God's judgment for sin. So
Thank you,
wrapped
Vic
up
Noid.
in Christ, the Bible even says in the case of the ark that the Lord himself closed the door. So the Lord closes them up into Christ, and Christ gives them safe passage through the waters of God's judgment. So there's a gospel atonement message there. But one possibility is that Noah, his wife, and 3 sons, that they are blameless in their genealogies, but that's only 6 people. There are 5 people. There are 8 in all that are taken up into the ark. That is the 3 wives of Noah's 3 sons. And one possibility is that the 3 wives of Noah's...
Okay, now I noticed we just lost 3 people, but I want to play this, listening to his animation and everything else, and how maybe it's not important. To me, it seemed important that he just goes right into, it's disturbing, the incestual relationships with Lot, but he's got a reason for that too, is that, the high elevation of where the ark was made Noah more drunk, and so that's what I was kind of waiting around for. So you last group, don't drop out yet. We're going to be moving on, and then you can go watch those other videos about people trying to convince you it's Atlantis and Anunnaki.
3 sons were polluted, that they were descendants of the Nephilim, and that it had been not polluted, but diluted by that point to where it was not externally visible. That Noah didn't know, oh my goodness, my son married this woman and she's not pure. That's one possible interpretation. If there's any of the wives of Noah's sons that were polluted, that had Nephilim kind of traced down DNA, very likely it would have been the wife of Ham. All right, just one really fun unhinged take here. One possibility. So Noah, when the ark finally lands, he plants a vineyard and he gets drunk with wine and passes out in his tent. Probably the explanation that you've heard in evangelical churches is that, Noah, he's just cooped up on the ark. He's shoveling animal poop for a really long time. He's just letting his hair down. He's exasperated and frustrated.
Now, I was at Bible college. I never heard that he was just shoveling poop for so long.
And the ark landed high up on a mountain. The altitude is very high. He wasn't used to that altitude, and so he more easily gets drunk and passes out naked in his tent.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say right now, I don't think anybody's ever heard that explanation before. But, when you're an ex-charismatic and you just you're right. This guy, I think he's the salt of the earth. I agree with him on so many things, but it is time where I do feel, and I think Randy agrees that if you can't admit flat earth and 9/11 and Benghazi 9/11 and some things like that, it's just like, come on, man. I don't know if you're on the right team or not. And Luther, my friend Luther is Yoswell Soaring. He mentioned it earlier as like, it very well could be that Rob Skiba was a gatekeeper, maybe an unintentional gatekeeper, but his last 2 years was spent mono-focused on developing a television show because he was going to sell a whole series of books and things like that. And, and he ignored a lot of things that was going on in the worlds of Nephilim and was put on the clock. And so this whole seed of man, seed of the Nephilim, it's right back into, now this one I think is unlike the other ministry, this man I think is still charismatic.
Of the devil. Did he have descendants? What are we talking about there? Well, let's just take a look to start with at Genesis chapter 6, and we're going to just review something here. It says, "Now it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God," that's Ben Elohim, "saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful." How many of you men tonight know that women are beautiful? The guy said something about an ugly woman. That's an oxymoron. There is no such thing as an ugly woman. Oh, well, we just won't.
Are you kidding? That's how come, I am all pretty much, an Amish Mennonite, wear a bonnet type of thing. But for some women, it might be a sin for them not to wear makeup. Come on now. All women are beautiful. That's like saying, are all men super handsome too? Come on, let's don't be stupid.
Won't go there, all right? "That the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose." Now you can go back through the ancient writings, and you can find in Enoch and many other references, and I had 25 or 30 ancient references listed that I could go through, and I could give you documentation how centuries before the New Testament was ever written, that the theologians, the clergy, what we would call the clergy of the day, the rabbis, the sages, they taught and believed, and they wrote that these were angels, fallen angels, who came down to earth and had sexual relations with earth women. Now you may say, well, how can that happen? Well, here's the whole deal. I don't know. All I know is that the Bible said it did.
Good point, Luther. Thank you.
Sometimes we get all hung up on trying to figure out, well, how'd that happen? Well, sometimes we just need to pass beyond that and just say, okay, I don't know how it happened, but the Bible said it did, so it did. So, with all these references, in some ways, I looked at them and I thought to myself, this is irrelevant because there's only one reference that matters. It's the Word of God. And the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of whom they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not dwell with man forever, for he is indeed flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. I personally believe that that was when the declaration was placed on the earth, on mankind, that the days of man on the earth would be 6,000 years.
All right. Well, he doesn't have any proof for that. Noah found grace. Let's pick it up here. Then we're going to be moving on.
Goliath. These giants were all over the land of Canaan. Wow, isn't that interesting? Which, by the way, S-A-P-H, in the Hebrew, that word simply means tall. So they just called him tall. Hey, tall. Okay. So let's take a look at Lahmi, 2 Samuel 21:20. He was the brother of Goliath the Gittite. Now, I want to show you something here. In the King James, it says he was the brother, but it's corrected here in the New King James, he was the son. You'll notice the words the brother in the King James are italicized. That means they're not really there.
So that's interesting, but I think we'll move on. You have the the proof that people now are, this is a topic that's not going away. We have to dig in. We have to compare what the Bible says, where we've been called, what we've been called to believe, and we will do that. The Lord, we'll be faithful to the Lord. Moving on. Did you know, somehow I was going to try it in, and I think I did with the title, that primordial, for some reason, when I saw that, it made me remember that the word mord is murder. It's it just means murder. So why is everything from that primordial soup? So I looked up Mord Wiki because I was wondering what's up with that primordial. And I had seen the primordial gods. Another proof of what's going on with people. Almost 150,000 views. Looks like it's going to be 100,000 views in a week. And again, it's not only the Christians, it's everyone else, and their sudden realization of what we've been drilling down into, the Elohim. From Malachi, there was just a group of survivors left, and we put this group of books together, for those who believe, and, Armageddon's over. And this is what the rest of the world is. This is what you have to say. I'm ready to fight the rest of my life, these people.
Of their elder counterparts. The primary aim of a theogony is to organize and trace the intricate family relations among these gods, revealing the mosaic of divine generations. One of the earliest, most renowned, and authoritative theogonies preserved in written form is Hesiod's Theogony, which dates back to around 700.
Right. And all of these, are going to lead to the same thing, Greek origins of the Genesis in the Bible, instead of reading the Bible as, the ultimate and these other gods. And, so what if they compare Jesus to Zeus? Jesus was the creator God. They were the gods that were considered, the council in heaven that's getting scolded in Psalm 82 for not being good gods. And so they will die like men. There's a lot going on, and just jumping into it with their globe loving world and saying things like this.
The creation of the universe. They were more about the divine power struggles and the changing of the guard. But hey, who needs cosmogony when you have feuding gods and awe-inspiring catastrophes to keep things interesting, right? In the mystical tapestry of the ancient Near East, we find the captivating Enuma Elish.
Think about that. Who talks like that?
In the mystical tapestry of the ancient Near East, we find the captivating Enuma Elish, a tell where gods clash in an awe-inspiring theomachy. Here, Marduk.
They're spending this money and they're putting it out to convince you. In my opinion, the Zoroastrians were worshiping God. The Bible teaches that from Esther through Daniel. They had, proof of the fiery furnace of all of that God was the God of the Hebrews. That was the living God. And that, you can do what you want, but don't tell me there's a God higher than that. So we're moving on. Let's see what this one was. This is another one about this here. I just here, when Elyon gave the nations their inheritance. All right. Well, let's look up Deuteronomy 32. And see if they left out a word. I'm suspicious that they did. Elyon is how you've heard me. Elyon, the Most High. Elyon. Let's see, is Elyon? Yep, the God Most High. That's why they usually put, God, the Most High. El, Most High. Most High. Abraham, the God, Most. The highest, the protector. This is the Spirit God. So we'll let that one go. When Elyon gave to the numbers, for Yahweh's portion was his people, and the other gods were the other ones. Now, that's not Plato. That's not Atlantis. That's the Bible.
32, 8 through 9.
Now, this might be a bit of a shock to those of us who've grown up with the idea of a single, all-powerful, monotheistic God. But Gamir argues that this is much later than on the biblical, anything but grandiose. He resides not in eternal realms beyond the heavens, but in the earthly land of Eden.
That you see how quickly they went off the deep end?
with different peoples scattered in different lands across the earth. Nor are these the only Greek elements in the story of Cain and Abel. The Bible has a multitude of stories about sibling rivalries. The story.
Yeah, well, we can't trust this guy anymore. Let's move it on. So this was the man. We looked up that. That is, you're straight up. What kind of a man was he? And Ish, one of those, just straight up a male. And then Isaiah, the shades. So we're right back where that we started out when it talked about how, and this led us to, Isaiah 14, that there are, what can we agree on? Bible. It's a long, hard, complicated book. It's to be faith in that one spirit God, that El Elyon, the Most High God who created, in Jesus Christ, he's the spirit God in the flesh. He died for us, provided himself as a sacrifice for us, by his blood, we're saved. Hallelujah. So, that's what we believe. What they believe is going to be, not biblical. It's going to be Anunnaki. It's going to be globe stuff. It's going to be keep trusting the government. Didn't get the Static in the Attic and his like, show me one lie that history's ever told. Wow. So with that, I will be praying for you. Please remember to pray for me. It's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past. Mud flood was Armageddon. I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? I am trying to prove that I have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.